All right. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Lindop District 92 Special Board Meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. Have a roll call, please.
Cheryl Griffin, present. Gregory Buchanan, absent. Aaron Hanna.
Present.
Brian Dawson.
Present.
Woody Morris Jr., absent. Tanya Taylor.
Present.
Penny Williams Wolford.
Present.
And also present.
Dr. Janice Jackson, present.
As well as
Todd Hayden.
Todd Hayden, Board Attorney.
Yeah.
We aren't open though.
Yeah, we're in
Yeah.
open, so
We don't have to do that, just for close.
Yeah, we're in open.
Yeah.
All right. Moving right along, public comment.
Any public comment?
You want to speak at the mic?
I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah,
Small space. So I came and spoke to you guys at the last board meeting, so now I'm requesting that the PTSO exec board talk in closed session with you guys so we can actually have a dialogue, because something's missing here. And now I'm gonna talk to you guys as a parent. I moved here specifically because this was a one school district, and I felt like this school district had a good handle on what was going on. I'm concerned. I'm concerned as a parent because the type of transparency and lack of transparency that's going on as a parent has me concerned about what's going on in the building. I hear a lot of things, and I'm not the type of person who just jumps on bandwagons about stuff. I pay attention to what I see. And what I'm seeing right now has me very concerned about if this is the way that we treat the parents who are interested in let's try to work together and make things work. And things are being said, but then we're seeing other stuff out in the community that's very different. That has me concerned because there's a lot of issues going on. So the fact that there's this meeting going on today about this, when we have like reading scores, all these different things that are going on, it's just very concerning to me as a parent.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Claudia Holland, I'm sorry.
Hollins?
Holland, like the country.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along. New business. Okay. I did. All right. There were no other public comments, right?
My comments would be, do we have another chance to make comments? Or is this the only one today?
This probably be it right now.
Okay. In 2010, the new principal of Stanton Elementary, Carolyn John, identified the need to improve instruction, build a new behavior management system, and improve the overall school culture. There were four things that needed to be done: capabilities, connections, confidence, and cognition. Right now, we're missing some of those. Capabilities include human capital, skills, and knowledge in order to build the capacity. So we have to have something to build on. Connections means social, in the form of significant relationships and networks. If we don't have those things, we have nothing to network with. Confidence signifies an increased level of self-efficiency, which PTSO has had thus far, that resulted in increased willingness to engage in partnerships. We have been more than open to build partnerships, relationships, networks with each other. Now we have to figure out a way to get everybody to come on board, because that's what we're here for: teamwork, networking, and capabilities. And then not making or including assumptions, beliefs, and worldviews. My personal worldview can't come into here because this is just a small area. My worldview is something totally different from what we have today. So I'm hoping that in increasing these things, we can have staff and families that share the same values as us, embracing partnerships to strengthen our student learning. Once these four concepts are achieved, some of the challenges in this building and our family school partnerships can be mitigated. So I'm hoping we can move from here on something more positive and a better note.
Just for clarification purposes, Ms. Penn, correct?
No, Angela Patterson.
Patterson, okay. Ms. Patterson, did you fill out the board?
I have it now, I'm filling it out.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
How everybody doing? Sorry I'm late.
Hey, what's going on, Greg?
How you doing, man?
Alright, moving right along. New business,
And I'm sorry. We thank you guys for your comments. I don't think we said that.
I didn't, I'm sorry, Val, I'm sorry, thank you. Moving right along, some new business. Discussion on parent, teacher, student organization, and PTSO election.
So we talked about the PTSO, we also talked about the differences between them. And so Mr. Hayden is here to sort of review some of that. And then the next thing he will go over is the election, the PTSO election.
So yeah, I know you've been presented a lot of information, so I'm not gonna go into that detail again, but just in general, some of the differences and similarities between the two different organizations. So they obviously both have similar goals, right? They work to improve student experiences, hopefully ultimately student outcomes by improving those student experiences. They both have a focus on fundraising to try and help local districts with that, and they both obviously involve the opportunity for community member or parent volunteers to be involved, whether it's PTO or PTA. They both have those same opportunities for community involvement, parent involvement. Some of the primary differences, I think, are the PTO is, or PTO or PTSO. When you throw in the S, you're adding a student element to it, right? But essentially still the same organizational function and structure. And same with PTA. PTOs are much more local, right? It's a purely local organization, completely independent of any other organization in the state or in the country. So it's 100% local control, mainly focusing on local fundraising efforts. And they set, because they're local and they're not subject to any kind of state or national charter, they set their own rules, right? So it's pretty wide discretion in terms of what those rules are. They develop their own bylaws, what they want to do with their organization, how frequently they want to do things. There's no minimum requirements in terms of how frequently they have to meet, other than whatever their bylaws establish. And again, that's set by their own, whatever rules they want to adopt for that, because they don't have some overarching standard or state or national organization. The PTA, conversely, you'd be a local chapter of a state and national organization, right? And the PTA nationally, I think, has been around for over 100 years now. I want to say 120, something like that. Same focus, though. They focus a lot on funding mechanisms for your school districts. They also have, the PTA, probably one big difference between PTA and PTOs. PTA is also heavily involved, or at least heavily influencing school policy, school education policy. So they do that at both the local level in terms of just working with local school districts, also legislatively. They have a lobbying arm, right? They're a pretty big organization. They also are involved in terms of, because of their size, national and state, they have training programs, they do conferences. So just, because of their scope, you leverage more out of them potentially in terms of those types of services. But you also then are subject to a national charter. So the rules are a little more dictated to the local chapter. Whatever, the local chapters still adopt their own bylaws, but they have to conform to both the national and state bylaws. So they have to get approved by the state as well in terms of what you would adopt. So you can't do anything that would that would deviate from the national organization in terms of local bylaws. The other, I think, feature that's a little different of PTAs than PTOs is that with the PTA organization, you are allowed under the national and state umbrella to join with other district PTAs to form what they call a PTA council. So I don't know, you may have seen that with other school districts who have a PTA. They may join up with 5, 10, or 15 other school districts who have PTAs in the region and form a PTA council. That's done, again, you know, they're talking to your legislature about funding. They're talking to donors about funding. And so it's more of that effort when you form those PTA councils. So it's both a local, regional, state, and national approach to the PTA. So those are some of the prime differences between the two types of organizations.
And so we were talking about the PTA and going there for those same reasons that Attorney Hayden had mentioned. We also looked at how it was related to our school improvement plan to drive us farther, and so it could take us more from a fundraising state to something that is going to be geared towards academic achievement as well. And if you look at this, Mrs. O and Dr. Robertson sort of went through, and then we all brought it together, talking about the vision and how it goes with the school improvement plan and the goals. And the goals are what the Board of Education has set out. You see a few more gaps there with the PTO, but what we were looking to do was to be able to have an organization comprised of the community that would be directly aligned with everything that we're doing. And so the school improvement plan, the strategic plan, et cetera, and making sure that everyone's marching in the same direction. It was not to dissolve anything, because we know how critical they are and how much they come to our need when we need anything from PTSO. And so we just wanted to give you this visual so that you can see, and if anyone would like to have a copy, you're welcome to have a copy as well. As we look for Blue Ribbon, the critical attributes of this and need immediate things, how they are also sort of focused here with this, and they both have a student-focused support as well as the continuous improvement. None really having the disaggregated data, the disparities eliminated. That would be something that would come throughout our school improvement plan, and then also assessments results to improve performance. And once that is tied into an organization that is driven primarily for the academic achievement, then we get this other portion in here as well, the assessment results, because we'll have that, and that would be articulation meetings with the PTSO, the PTA, or whatever the organization is called, but to make sure that everyone is playing their role. And so what we've really talked about with the building administration is really having how we can get parents into the building and to help. We have a shortage with the after school and making sure that people want to do that, but we know that the children still need help with after school. Being in the building more to help sort of gauge not gauging what's going on, but to be in the building more and to just make a presence inside of the building. I know we have the mommy-son dance, we have the daddy-daughter dance, and things like that, but we're really looking to move this so that we can show an impact with the data and how our children are thriving, and especially as it is academically. We see even now our goal has been to remain commendable, but commendable in the way that it is what the state is doing. What they're doing now with the laws, that they are saying that Black and brown students, you only have to do a 6% increase. And a 6% increase will never close the gap, and in fact, it's widening the gap. So we need the parents and the teachers and the administration and the students, all of us together with that. And that is the main reason. We would have some data to go back also with the PTA at a legislative level, as well as the national level. So that is the overall goal. I know we were looking at some information for PTA, and when Mrs. Patterson came in, she also said that she had looked at some information, so I think it'll be a good fit because we're all looking at the same way to go forward.
I'm sorry, can I just make sure I'm understanding this right? So, as it relates to these critical areas, all three agencies have the same availability or capacity to meet those needs. And the gaps for those three agencies are, these three organizations are the same.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, and then the next one we went over too, right?
Which one?
The,
The one before that?
I thought it was, well, it's this one. I don't know if it's, yeah, okay. Maybe it's that one, okay. So, trying to understand this one.
And these are all your board goals up at the top,
Okay, and where's PTSO on this?
at the bottom. So there's PTO.
Right.
So it just doesn't have the student portion in it. PTO and PTSO, the only difference is the student part in there.
Okay, so where are the gaps? So PTSO, if it were on here, which would be great, because we're comparing three organizations, right? So where's the gaps with it? Does it align with what PTA and PTO has? You know?
PTO, it aligns with PTO,
PTSO and
aligns
PTO?
with PTO.
Okay. It would've been great for that graph to share that as well.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. Mrs. Oakland,
Because it doesn't
please make a
clearly
note so we
articulate
can do
that.
Thank you.
You see what I'm saying? I'm saying on here.
Yeah, I see
PTA,
what
but
you're
it
saying.
doesn't have-
PTO, from what I'm understanding from this chart, PTO and PTSO is the same thing. The S is only missing
But the
for the student
students,
portion.
yes.
So maybe we need to make it record what the student portion is.
Right, I'm saying it should
So,
have been.
Dr.
slash
Jackson, can you
PTSO.
adjust, is there, what's the student portion that's missing?
Well, the students play a role.
In all
in
three,
of
all the
these,
brackets?
In all of those, yes.
And is the student role the same in all the brackets?
Yes.
Okay, so,
For
So
whatever
then
else,
it would have
whatever
been,
question.
if the fourth, if we would have had another row with PTSO, like we did the other chart, just to keep them separate, what would have been the gray areas for PTSO? Because if we're gonna look at data, we gotta look at data consistently on every chart. So then it should have been a graph for PTSO. You see what I'm saying?
So we could have put PTSA instead of PTA, because the only thing that's added to that is the student, as well as PTO. The S is missing for the student, but they are the same organization.
so from what I'm hearing and what I understand, the only difference is the acronym. It's either PTA, PTAS,
No, SA.
SA, or PTO or PTSO. So it's just a
Yes.
student, the S to represent the student population
I
is,
understand.
is missing in both, but it doesn't have a different definition.
Or the graph wouldn't change.
Right.
Basically,
Right.
we're just adding a letter and but the graph is still reading the same.
But nor did it on the other one, but it was identified. You see what I'm saying? Just to have the data consistent so you can look at data consistently.
I wish we had said that. When we sent it, so instead of.
I did know, think of it, yeah, look at it, yeah. But just be, I mean, that's always my drive, right? Be consistent with the data. As we're sharing it on different things, yeah, always be consistent with your data. If you're comparing three organizations, then all documents should have three organizations, so we see where the gaps are on everything. Not on some and on, not on some. Okay.
But to be clear, there's no data missing.
No.
Okay, I just wanna make sure because the second page, it defines PTSO, PTA, and PTO, the three organizations. So they're both mirroring the same, the slides are mirroring the exact same thing. Okay,
But it's different information on the slides. Does that make sense?
as far as,
This,
Sorry to interrupt there. PTSO,
Can you scroll down? It's there. It's just, it's right there. Can you scroll? No, see, PTSO is right here. So I don't know how you can go back.
It's getting cut off.
Yes, it's getting cut off. Okay.
All right.
It's getting
Let's
cut
see
off.
here.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, thank you. You're welcome. Okay.
So wouldn't it reflect on the actual sheets that we have?
She's gonna print
I'm
out
gonna
a
be
new
sure to
sheet.
have to print out, because it got cut off.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the purpose of the meeting, I think we need to go back and kind of recap because the community members, PTSO, both in agreement that something is missing. And I'm trying to figure out, without, you saying what is missing, you said that there's a gap. And I'm trying to understand where are we missing. We're going to use the word, I guess, transparency, because that was a word that came up today, so I'm just going to follow with that word. Trying to figure out what we missing. So today's meeting, the purpose of today's meeting is what?
The purpose of
The agenda says, and I'm sorry, I'm not cutting you off. The just said to discuss parent, teacher, student organization, PTSO, and PTSO election. But it sounds like we may be missing a piece, and I'm just trying to decipher what piece are we missing so we can move forward as a board.
Yeah, we just haven't gotten to the second piece because this was the first one to talk about.
Okay, so the first piece was just to give us, define
Yes.
what it is, and then the second piece.
Is to talk about the questions with the election. Yeah.
Okay. But before we move on to the election, we still missing a piece. So like if I wasn't in the board meeting last month, I would have been missing. I would have not understood today what's going on. So I'm not sure everybody in the room, it's something missing.
Okay.
So we need to figure this
You
out.
wanna know how this came about? The
Yeah.
entire thing? Okay,
Yes.
so the entire piece came about when Mrs. O and Mrs. O told me that that Mrs. Patterson had called her, that they had had an election, and that she was the new president. And so she said, but I didn't know about anything, and so neither of us knew about it going on. And I think they had seen something on Class Dojo at some point. When she came in, I was telling her we have been looking at PTA. I was happy because we were looking at PTA, because that's something that we were looking at as well, and going with the school improvement plan. And so at that time, I had to take the phone rang, and so I went out to take a phone call. I came back, Mrs. O came back, and she said, she said, Mrs. Patterson has some great news. I think you can be excited about it. And I sat down and I said, okay, well, what is it? And so Ms. Patterson said, I just was talking to Mrs. O, and I wanted to make sure that, we're starting off from a clean slate and nothing was held back from before, or nothing was, this was nothing personal from before. And I told her, I said, I'm so happy you brought that up. I said, I didn't know what happened after our last meeting. I said, because after our last meeting, I said, we had talked, and I said, your husband and yourself and me, we were in the office, and we were talking about, an event that happened at school, and I said, I had a very similar event with my own child. And that was and so we all, kind of chuckled with it, left, and everything was okay. When later on, I think there was an issue, maybe Mrs. Patterson had an issue about her child or something, but she came to talk to Mrs. O. Mrs. O said that, the person here that you're talking about is no longer here. And Mrs. Patterson said, no, she didn't want to speak to that person because that person was what did she say? She said that person should not be around children at all. And then Mrs. O said, well, I'm going to escalate this, to the superintendent. And she said, no, I don't want to talk to the superintendent. The superintendent is a liar.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
She just
I think-
stepped out.
Hold on, let
Hold
someone
on.
call.
She was stepped out.
Thank you. Just sit up there in the hallway. Ask Mr. Kosick or someone.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
I think we're just getting a little too deep into, as Dr. Jackson is going into this conversation,
Yes,
I
because I
think
think
this
you
should.
have something to say, because what
Wait,
she's
wait,
saying
wait,
is
wait,
not
I'm
correct.
sorry, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I think since it's talking about our only employee, those are discussions that should be had in closed session. Because that's not the way this conversation is going, should not be an open session conversation. It should be in closed session.
Well, the board can agree to disagree on that, but I think it's noteworthy and recording was not being recorded.
It is.
Oh, being
It is.
recorded, no, because we need to understand what's going on. And I understand you saying this detail, it shouldn't be this detail, I get
No,
that.
no, no,
But
I'm
we
not
do
saying it
need to
shouldn't.
have, we
No.
do need, at this setting at the moment, but
We
we
just
do need
in
to be
closed session.
transparent.
Right.
And we being transparent, but we need to understand, we can't go from the definition of PTO and PTA, and then we have community members here saying, there's a disconnect, I wanna have a meeting with you guys. Let's come together right now in the moment and kind of discuss it, so we can clear some of this up this evening.
I totally agree, but since the conversation is going the way it is, that needs to be a closed session agenda item, because we're talking about a specific employee, which is our only employee.
Okay, and we
So
can.
I'm just saying, it needs to be had in closed session.
Okay, so out of respect for you thinking that it's going too far, we can stop the conversation, but now we have an idea of what transpired. We needed to go back a little bit.
No, I think the conversation should continue, but it should continue in closed session, so we can finish, so she can finish. That's all I'm saying.
So in public comment during the last meeting, though, it was all in
Exactly.
open.
It was
Right, it was an open session. So if I
would've
wasn't at the
been there-
meeting,
If I would have been there, I would not have allowed people to talk about our only employee in open session. I would have said
You
that.
could
Wait
not
a minute.
stop a person from making a public
they were making a
comment.
public
Wait,
What are you
comment.
talking
So
about?
what I'm saying, Woody, is yes, you can. As a board, we have permission to ask if a person is talking about an employee or a student. Those conversations can only be had in closed session. You're just stopping them from saying them in open session because it's supposed to be said in closed session.
Well, correction. We didn't talk about a specific student. The comment was just a public comment, and a comment was made to say if PTSO is still in existence or not. That was pretty much, from what I understood, that was pretty much the conversation. So I could be completely wrong, and our attorney can let me know if I'm wrong for saying this right now, open session. But I think a quick dialogue needed to have had to show the transparency to where this is coming from. So from my understanding, the administrative team was already looking into having a PTA. When the board meeting happened last month, the board wasn't aware. So that kind of threw the board off. Now, it was also said in the meeting that that the PTSO had an election, and that there were board members present at their election that took place at the library, which I didn't know anything about the election, and neither did the admin team here knew about this election. So the question came up, and it was commented in public at the meeting to say that we had an election. We don't understand why the school don't know that we have an election and we have a new team, a new president. So if that was mentioned there, but some of the board members were actually present at this election, there's a disconnect. And nobody said, I was there.
Well, it wasn't me.
So I'm just saying.
The board members were invited. We never once said that board members were present because we would have given their names. We gave a roll call of who was there.
Okay, so I'm saying, because we were in open session, it needed to, I mean, we have to address these things. So when we keep speaking about the word transparency, we have to be able to openly have a conversation.
Right, and I'm saying have that conversation, but it should be had in
But-
closed session because
But we ain't doing it in closed session, so.
I'm saying, but we may not have done it then.
We got a
when
lawyer
in
right
closed
here, dude,
session.
let me ask,
So,
what you thinking? Since you
So
here,
if someone makes a public comment and it's about an employee, you can ask but not require them to address you in closed session. They have a right to make the public comment in public if they so choose.
and, right, and I'm saying, we
why
can ask for
why are we
that.
talking about that? We wanna talk about what happened. You keep on talking about something that happened.
No, I'm not, I'm talking about what Dr. Jackson is
Yeah,
about
but
right now.
I mean, we trying to get to the
Okay,
bottom of
go ahead,
this.
keep talking, Dr. Jackson.
Excuse me.
Well, we gotta understand it, so I think we have to understand it.
Before we keep going, yes, ma'am.
So are we allowed to talk back and forth during open session, or can that only happen in closed session?
Not,
And I want to make clear too, there's no closed session exception to talk about the PTO, PTSO. There's no
When you're talking
exemption
about an
for that.
employee,
If there's a complaint about a specific employee, you could talk about that in closed session. But the larger discussion about PTO, PTSO, or PTA, that has to be an open session.
okay, continue where you was at, you said something about.
All that for
So she wanna know if she can go back and
Well,
Right.
typically, you don't go back and forth.
During
The
the
board
board.
president has the discretion to recognize someone for additional public comment, but it typically at a board meeting, it's not a, you know,
Right.
round the room conversation.
So, because there's two different things going on here. There is the PTSO, and then there seems to be a personal situation that started being talked about. And I'm trying to get clarity about when everything shifted, because you were aware that we had a president, we had a secretary, we had a treasurer in August. So you called myself up, the treasurer up, and had us take a picture with the mayor and a check. So you were aware that there was a PTSO.
During the-
So
during the-
my concern is this: I'm reading an article in the paper from the superintendent saying that we don't exist. That is concerning to me when there is evidence that we do exist. She's aware that we exist, so what is going on? We had elections back in May. It had the 3 individuals who were elected. That was shared with the school the way it's always shared with the school. That president met with the superintendent this summer. They had conversations. So at what point did the conversation shift to a
She said what
PTA?
president? What president?
Ms. Obasi, Sanyu Obasi, that was our, she was elected during the May election, so
Yes.
there was 3 new officers. Secretary, Ms. Reed was the treasurer, and Ms. Sanyu Obasi was the president. She had to step down.
And that's what I heard, that she was stepping down.
Yeah, but that
Right,
didn't
so
happen.
you guys met,
Yeah.
she stepped down, so you did hear that, so you knew one
Yes.
person stepped down,
Yes.
you were aware
Yes.
that there were 2 other officers.
Yes.
There was no communication about a PTA. So from our standpoint, not until we had a new president that this conversation started. So for us, it's what is going on, because if you're gonna switch organizations, you don't switch organizations during the middle of the year. That's a conversation that you have before the school year starts, so you can start off right? So we don't know what's going on, and we're asking, let's meet so we can talk to figure out, when did the PTA start, this conversation start? Why is the conversation happening? And then why aren't we being communicated with? Because in August, you were aware, I was the secretary and there was a treasurer. We don't even know where that check is, but that's a whole nother conversation. And so there was no conversation with any of us. You've always had the email address for the PTSO. It has not changed. There was no communication saying, hey, I'm looking into this. Let's be a part of this. Tonight's meeting, I left up on this meeting because I was looking for something else for my child. So if I met with you guys last month, I asked for transparency, and then you're having a meeting tonight, and you don't invite the PTSO as part of this conversation. To me, that lacks transparency. That lacks trying to have these conversations that need to be had. If we're trying to create a situation where we can work together for the kids, because this, to me, this is silly, really. My concern is the way in which it's being done. And to me, then that makes me concerned about what else is being done this way in this building. That's concerning to me. Because there's no reason why there should not be a conversation being had. And it's concerning to me when you say that you didn't know and you did.
You know
We
what?
had a conversation.
Mrs. Holland, you know what, let me apologize for that, because I do remember now calling you all up to accept the PTSO check. So we began to talk about the PTA because we wanted to be going towards.
At what point?
We began talking about this probably in August. Probably in August, we began talking about it because we wanted to have something that was gonna be aligned to our school improvement plan as well as the blue ribbon status that we were trying to get. This was a national organization. It also allowed us to have some legislative activity there, and that was it. It was not to undo anything because, as I said, Ms. Dranko and Ms. Mister were the ones that we went to for everything all of the time, whether it was in school, whether it was out of school. And the reason for doing that was to take us to another level. So it would not just be that. It was never to dissolve a PTSO. It was never to not have a parent organization. We wanted to have something that was more robust, more something that we could reach to a different level with, as what we're trying to do inside of it. So it was not anything in that manner at all. At all.
And so why not reach out to us? Go ahead.
You want me?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, because we were getting the information. And so when Mrs. Patterson came in and said that she had PTA information, the first thing I said was, good, because now, we're looking at the same things. As soon as we got information about the charter, I told her that Dr. Robertson was supposed to receive an email from them, but she's listed as the contact, the same as the former assistant principal was. And she said, okay. We said, all right, okay, we'll talk to you. I'll let you know as soon as we hear something. She said, okay, good. We left. That was it. I got sick. I heard about the meeting at the board meeting, and I didn't know anything about it. What I'm saying is this is the same thing that happened before, and I didn't know. So we had the conversation where everything was okay, and Mrs. O was there. Mrs. O, will you please speak to the meeting, because you were in there for the entire meeting?
Just 1 second before she does
Yes,
that,
yes, ma'am.
I want to understand,
Yes.
when did the interview happen with the press, the Village Free Press? When did that interview happen?
That was from the public relations, our communications person, to put out that we were having a meeting. And so, because everyone in this information was going out, I wanted to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to hear about it. So it wasn't just in a silo, and it was done for that reason. It was nothing to do anything else other than to have people to learn about the PTA. When I told the board about it, they immediately said, well, we need to make sure that we're doing it, and so why are we doing it now? I'm trying to just get the information out. It's still the PTA that we wanted to talk about. We also talked about in that meeting about what it was, and Mrs. Patterson asked if we could have, can we just carry the PTSO into the PTA. I said they have some certain guidelines. And then again, we talked about, she said she had the information there and that she had been looking at. And so I felt like, okay, this is good. We're all going in the same direction. But I do apologize because I forgot that we even called you up there for that one. All I have been hearing is that, we hadn't done anything, we didn't know, and it was a surprise because we did not know that there was anything else that had gone on and transpired. And because typically, or for every year prior to that, we had all of our PTSO work here in the school. And so when we didn't have it or didn't know, we did not know what was going on with it. We did not know. We didn't know where it happened. We know about the one in May, what happened in May. We know about that one. We know about Mrs. Adabasi and how she was going to not be able to do it because she didn't have the time or whatever it was. But we didn't know that anything else had happened. That's when we began to start looking at the information, and that was all it was. And so how this sort of came to this place, I really am at a loss, but I was very concerned because I was not there, and this was something said, and when we left, everything was okay. And so this is now the second time. Happened the first time, we left, everything was okay. Happened this time, we had the meeting, the three of us, myself, Mrs. Patterson, and Mrs. O, and then there was something different. And so yes, I was very shocked with that. And that is why we're having it, to let everyone see this is what we're trying to do. It was not because of that. Mrs. Dranko and Mrs. Mister, when they were in their offices, it's always been, can we do this? Can we, yeah, let's do it. Let's hurry up and do it. So there's never been an adverse attitude about having it, because we know that this is a part of the overall community. It's not just what's here in this building. It's about the community and the parents, and that's who we're here to serve. So there's never been anything, not that I am aware of, that ever happened differently.
Yeah, so I'm glad to know that we was both at a loss, because this really has been a situation where it just kind of came out the blue. And there has been communication on Class Dojo saying, we're recruiting since August. So again, all that would take is just an email to say, hey, what's going on? And there was nothing. So from our standpoint, we didn't do anything different than what's been going on. And even when I mentioned the president, you seemed surprised about who that was, and we had to remind you about who that was. So again, it's very concerning to me that there was this statement put out in the Village Free Press saying that we didn't exist anymore, and you had not communicated with us. And as you mentioned, you had great working relationships with them. So even if you forgot we existed, any of these things, you could have reached out to them. So there's this disconnect of a lack of communication, and then something happened, and then all of a sudden it's the PTA, where we could have sat down, we could have talked about the history of the PTSO, why this decision was made. You could have asked us to be at this meeting this evening. That's very concerning.
This was for the Board of Education.
This is a public meeting.
I know that it is, but the reason was because they wanted to have, and I'll just say, because I talked to the board president and also the board vice president and the secretary, and then the other information was handed to the other board members. But we talked about having a meeting, and the larger meeting was going to be, they said, wait, don't have the town hall meeting because we want to wait and we want to make sure we have enough time to do this. Okay, fine, and that's why we did, but then there were still questions about the PTA and the PTSO, which is why Attorney Hayden is here today. So it was nothing to go and undo, redo anything, but it was to give them a clearer picture of what it was.
You understand how that looks though, when there's an opportunity, it's a meeting for us to be able to come and hear the same information that you're hearing. And we thought we were moving forward, and then we see that there is a special board meeting to talk about the PTSO. in the PTSO election.
Okay, so, oh, I'm
Can we-
sorry.
Can we?
Yeah, we
go to the
gotta
next-
keep going.
let's-
But
let's go.
this meeting tonight was so that the board can be on the same page. So that we all have the same understanding, not just myself and the vice president. So that the entire board can know everything. As far as PTSO being disbanded or anything like that, when our meeting with Mrs. Patterson, we did let her know that that wasn't the case. That PTSO is still strong and going, okay? But tonight's meeting was just so that I don't want you to feel as though that we're trying to hide anything or anything like that. We were doing this so that the board can be all on the same page with this information. That's it, that's all. There was definitely gonna be a meeting with the PTA representative to break all that down with us, and you guys would have been there. Well, you guys will be there to know and hear it the same time we hear it. This was just information that we wanted so that the board can be on the same page. That's it, that's all. Okay?
Can I ask one question?
Give me a second though, we got people in front of you. Ms. Patterson.
After talking to the Illinois student, the Illinois Board of Education, PTA or PTSO does not directly affect your blue ribbon status. What affects your blue ribbon status is being effective as whatever organization we have for our students, parents, and teachers. Our whole goal after meeting or after our elections was to recruit. We got to get more people. We were talking about ways to get people in, have us be successful for our future. The things that were discussed in the meeting, as far as Ms. Jackson, we both have different views on how that meeting went. We both know that things went totally different from what was said. I don't want to get back into it, but I don't think that Ms. O should be put on the table with that meeting because she is her subordinate, and we wouldn't want her, when things do come out, to have any problem with losing her job or being sued or anything of that manner. I just don't want to put Ms. O in a bad situation. The meeting was initially with Mrs. O. When she invited Ms. Jackson, she changed the game. She changed what the meeting was about. All I wanted to do was introduce myself as the new president, hopefully get a welcome. What are we gonna do from here? Because we already met on where we were gonna go, what direction we need to be led into, if anything with the school, what the next steps were. How do I even be a PTSO president? Who do I work with if there was a exchange between the board that was already there and myself? What is needed? Whether it's PTA, PTSO, which PTA came up in that meeting in October 13th or whenever that's when I was told, and Ms. O was told that they were gonna start researching PTA, not before that. Because she had no clue, and she stated in the meeting, oh, I had no idea about that. So, saying that they were looking at PTA in August, okay, one word against another. I can't really, I don't wanna try to steer you all one way or another. I just want you all to know that that wasn't discussed until October, after I came in to say that I was voted in by the group as the president. So I don't think that, if we can't get local recognition, who cares if we're on the legislative table? The president doesn't hear me, the president doesn't hear any of us. Our local people do, our local board do. If we can't get a return email from the principal of the school or the vice principal, who cares if we're on the legislative table? I know I don't. I live around the corner from this school, from this Board of Education. This is what I care about, and this is what the other parents in our organization care about. Not the president, not the PTA national recognition, because I need to be recognized here in my community today when I'm at trunk or treat, when I'm walking down the hallways to assist my son's teacher with what's going on in his classroom today, not tomorrow or next school year. We care about now. We need things now. We need reform now. And that's what PTSO stands for. Reform, help, teacher assistant, student assistant. That's what we're here for. Let's stay focused on our goal and move forward in a positive direction so that we can be an impact on not just ourselves in this room, but everybody in this building, in this community. I want people to see us. When they see me, I want them to say, hey, that's the lady from PTSO, not, oh, that lady. I want them to say, that lady talked to me about PTSO. I don't have any kids there, but I can donate. Because that's what I've been asking people to do, donate. We need money, we need resources, we need things to make us better. Let's do that. Let's go in that organizational way of doing things. Let's start here in Broadview. We are Broadview Strong. Katrina teaches us that daily. We are Broadview Strong. Let's go with it, no matter what it is.
Thank you. Madam Secretary.
Yes. I just had a question in the matter of transparency. Are meetings, PTSO meetings generally held where? And the other thing is when was the board invited to attend it?
So the PTSO meetings are usually held in this building. A request was made. We did not get any feedback from about having the meeting here, so then we found another location to have the meeting. And it was posted as it usually is on Class Dojo. For everyone.
But
Yeah.
And so that's where you're saying board members
were invited on Class Dojo?
We called, some of the board members, didn't say your name, we called multiple board members to come out if they had time, because it was posted for everyone to come. So we did reach out to some of the board members that we have contact with, and we did request that they come if they had the time to. It's not for me to call their names, but they know who they are.
Okay, my only comment to that is that if it's only select board members that were invited, to me, that's not full transparency.
Correct.
I don't know everybody's phone number personally. If I see you in the neighborhood, I would have invited you. I haven't seen you.
Well,
I'm not in disagreement
But
with
that's-
that, because
wait,
I don't know anything about
I
that,
know.
so I'm not in disagreement about that. We did what we normally do.
okay, but my thing is, it's like, as we just said here a minute ago, it was like there's emails that people had. And if, say, certain board members were made aware of it, my problem is why didn't those board members let the rest of us know about it? Because we're talking transparency here. It seems like there's only select ones that were made aware of this, and to me, that's not transparency.
I'm in agreement, because like I said, I don't know anything about that part.
I contacted 9 parents as well that I have the phone numbers for from the last 3 school years. So I can't contact every parent in the school either. I can only contact the 9 I have phone numbers for. So I don't think that we were trying to hide anything. It was just a matter of, hey, I know you have a child here, you can vote. If you don't have a child here, you can't vote. So
Okay, so I think we all on the same page. I think the greater the good, we want to be here for the children of the school. We have 400 students in here, in this body of the school, and we trying to recruit more parents to help with wherever we are. So if I can tell now that yes, it probably was a disconnect. Now what the board got kind of like thrown off because it was brought up in the last month meeting, and we didn't know about we didn't have any information at that time. So that's how we got kind of thrown in. So just for transparency, we had a conversation with our one employee that, we're gonna be transparent in regards to this. Now, as far as the school board, we normally don't get that detailed with PTSO. We just hear about the things, and if we can support, we'll be there. So this was just new. But just being the board president vice president and president, we just wanted to make sure that as far as the admin team, as far as the community, as far as the rest of the board members, that we're all on the same page. And it sounds like we are. We have the attorney present just so if we had questions, we didn't have to pick up the phone during this meeting to ask questions. So that's why the attorney is here. That's it, that's all. So I think now we're all on the same page. It's for the better of the school. It's for the better of the students. And we're going to move forward. Now, what we're going to move forward with, it still hasn't been determined. It still hasn't been determined. We just going through the pros and the cons, trying to see what benefits this school. But as far as adults in this room, we all understand that we want to be on the same page as far as helping our children grow, supporting them, whatever that may be. So we haven't got to a point. PTSO, and to me, and I might be wrong, as of today, it's still in existence.
but nobody's communicating.
Well, we will communicate that after this meet if it hasn't been communicated. But that's the understanding that we have as a board, that PTSO still exists today. So I'm sorry if that was a disconnect, but that's why we all in this room tonight.
And I just want to point out something. I know you have the 3 PTO, PTSO, PTA. PTSO is actually the same thing as PTO. We get to choose our names. We were founded in accordance with PTO rules of founding. The parent-teacher organization. We decided to name it PTSO because we wanted to include the students. And what I must point out is that with Mr. Kenobi leaving, we lost he was our connection to the administrators and to what's happening in the school. We did have an issue with we've been trying to recruit. We got somebody who was willing to participate. We were trying to start it, and we are having issues setting up the meeting in the school. I was the one who reached out to the library because we figured, hey, this is a community thing. Could you accommodate us, because we're trying to find a room to meet. And I have a library board member right here. So they were very accommodating, like, yeah, sure, we are a Broadview organization, come and meet. I'm like, it's kind of last minute thing, but I'm like, we really need to meet because we want to move forward. We want to get this going. We want to get started with events and whatever we can do for our school. So I don't want to step on anybody's toe because I am officially just a member. So, and I'll be assisting in anywhere you guys decide that you need us. But I wanted to point out that as a parent, not even a member of PTSO, I wish we were involved in this conversation so we can make informed decisions, because I know you're looking at PTA, PTO, what's better for our school. Invite us.
But you will be invited. So tonight, the meeting was just for the board to get an understanding of kind of like what's going on. Then the next step would be a community meeting where it'd be a breakdown of everything. It'd be a representative. You would be, you will have time to present or however it goes. So please don't think that this was not us being not transparent. We needed as a board to understand what was kind of going on. And we chose not to have closed session because we wanted to be transparent. We wanted everybody on the board to be able to open and talk freely. So I'm gonna apologize, my apologies, but the next step is everybody coming together, getting a better understanding of each organization and how it's going to benefit our students here. Like you said, we spent a lot of time talking about something that I think that it was important to speak on, but at the same time, there's no reason that an election or anything should have been held at a library. It should have been here in this school because you are part of the school. So we're going to do better. We can say that. Things are going to happen. Things are going to change. I'm glad we did have this open dialogue. Whoever wanted to speak had the opportunity to speak. But at this point, I think we need to move on.
So that's what I was stating at first, is that this meeting was not to close anybody out. This meeting was just so that we can all be on the same board. And that's exactly what you're now president, is what we told her at the time that we met together, okay? So you guys will definitely be invited to anything that we have concerning PTA and PTSO, okay? All right, moving along. Oh, Ms. O, anything you want to add to this conversation? Sure, okay, thank you.
That was the second part of it, right?
No, she got copies.
Okay, get that going. All right, moving to the next part of D. Are we ready? PTS student organization and PTSO elections. Are we at that part now? Yes. Okay. Mr. Hayden.
So, yeah, I mean, I think there were some questions about it, but before I even say what those questions were, I want to emphasize that in my conversations with Dr. Jackson, the PTA discussion and the election of the PTSO officers are two different things totally, right? So that the PTSO election has nothing to do, from my understanding, with the PTA discussion. Two totally different things. Because if you do continue to have a PTSO, it's important from the school's perspective that the bylaws be followed, right? That there be compliance with that, so you have valid officers. So I just think some of the questions were about that election process, in terms of the location. It was different than what it normally would be. The fact that the notice, there was maybe a lack of notice in terms of how that got out to people. In particular, I think some of the concern from the school side was There wasn't the school administrator or the school teacher representatives were not present. They're part of the executive board of the PTSO. So they would typically be at every meeting of the PTSO, and they weren't present. It's my understanding they didn't know that this was occurring. That's something that would have to be looked into more if this is an ongoing issue. The publication or publicizing of the election is kind of the same as the notice, but the bylaws do say that the PTSO should publicize a process for how the election is going to occur, a process for how they're going to accept nominations, and then present those nominees to the membership for a vote. So there's some question about how, if at all, that occurred. So I think those factors raised red flags, because it was something different. It wasn't the normal process that, from the school side, they were used to seeing in terms of the PTSO, the way they've done elections in the past. And so that raised issues. No one can sit here and definitively say, no, the bylaws were not followed. That's not what they're saying. They're saying there are questions. That if the PTSO is the organization that's ultimately chosen, those questions would have to be addressed, answered to make sure that we have a proper, officers elected to that organization. So, I mean, that was it, but again, I feel like I need to emphasize, because of the way the discussion was going tonight, that it's a separate issue from the PTA, because everything's on the table, right, at this point. So if the PTSO does continue, there needs to be assurances that the bylaws were adhered to, or at least if it needs to be redone, then redo it, so that it's consistent with the bylaws, right? It should be. There's ways to address it, but it may or may not need to be addressed depending on what direction the larger group decides they want to take this.
Thank you.
Recognize.
So I understand that this was just a meeting for you guys to understand PTO versus PTA. But now I'm hearing there were questions about our election process. And so again, if there were questions about that, why wasn't there? We have concerns about your election process. Can you please come and explain it to us so that we can have that conversation versus pulling a lawyer in to look at the information, not even knowing what has really transpired, because then we could have shown over 200 people in the building and in the community viewed the information. What we put out there is similar to what was put out when we had elections in May. No one had any concerns, no one expressed any concerns. And so, again, this looks like something different.
Well, I can agree, this is different. So from a board standpoint, the board does not look at PTSO, that's what's in the building, PTSO, right? The board, normally PTSO works with the admin team, and in the past it's been with the principal and the assistant principal. The board has no direction, the board is only here for participation and for numbers, and if you need our assistance help or any of that. We don't have any rights to the voting, we don't have any rights to anything. We just welcome the transparency and the help in the school. That's it, that's all. So the board needed to understand, because this is new for us. We do not come on the level of PTSO. PTSO is handled by our admin team, and that's the direction of the history of Lindop that it has always been. So tonight was just a level of letting the board know in open session what transpired, why it transpired, what we're gonna do going forward. That's all it is. I do understand what you're saying with the disconnects. I get it, I hear it. It sounds like it was more or less communication, in my opinion. Now that's just my opinion. I'm one of 7. I can't speak for any other board member but myself. But what we're saying, and what I think I hear we're saying, and it would be directed from our admin team too, is that we have to be more open with our communication. So it was missed. I can say that from what I hear tonight. It was just told, it was missed. Or it didn't go to the right persons. I can say that. So regardless to what it is, I think as of tonight, we have a better understanding. And the point is, we're gonna move forward with the direction of whatever the admin team presents and what the board, say, okay, that's a good idea. But normally the board does not come on the level of PTSO. That's totally handled outside the realm of here, but to just generate transparency and a better understanding of what's going on within the walls of the school, we wanted to be a part of it. So that's why we're having the meeting. Now the agenda, the wording could have been much better. But again, it was just communication, and it was communication just for the board. It wasn't looked upon like, to be more detailed to anybody other than the board.
I think the wording was correct though, because I think there were conversations had with the lawyer about whether or not our PTSO election was legitimate, just based on what's being said here. So I think it was written correctly. So that's concerning to me too, because again, no one reached out and said, hey, we have concerns. And if we weren't sitting here, I think this conversation would be going a lot differently. So communication was a big piece of this, but then there's something else too.
But that was the thing, of trying to figure out what the something else is. It still is not, I'm still lost as to what.
So I don't think we're ever going to get to what the something else is, because there are disagreements about how a conversation went down. Okay. So I think, so I'm always looking at actions, because people can say whatever is about the actions. Mm-hmm. And that news article really told me a lot about the actions, because that was after the board meeting. That was after, that a conversation, 4 people spoke at that board meeting. 1 person was contacted to sit down with you guys, and 2 people ended up there. And then a news article came out that same day.
Okay, so let me correct you on that. So, yes, 2 people contacted the board and they wanted to sit down. But the conversation wasn't to have a PTSO meeting.
Correct.
The conversation was, we want to talk about character of Dr. Jackson. Right. I shut that down inside the meeting because it had nothing to do with PTSO, and we were all on the same page. Now the board wasn't aware of that, because I wasn't going to let that meeting go on, because it was a personal attack. So whatever happened outside of these walls of Lindop School, some of that was mentioned didn't have anything to do with PTSO.
Right, so I'm glad that that's clarified, because as a exec board, we had asked to meet so we could have this transparent meeting we're having, and then it's like, well, in that meeting, you guys talked about, well, PTSO is good and stuff like that, and it's like, communicate it to us as a whole so we know that we're good and we can move forward, because we are a state organization. We have we're a non-for-profit, so if we're not going to move, we need to know that immediately, because we're not just holding to the school. We also have to let the state know, hey, we're being told we can't exist anymore.
What email? I'm sorry, we don't have the correct email for PTSO, do we? Because you guys was copied on the email, correct?
Which email?
It was an email to say that the board was gonna meet to get kind of like an understanding, and then we as a whole, it was agreed upon that we will have a meeting, correct?
So I'm saying that meeting was had, and there was some conversation about PTSO is welcome to move forward and stuff, but we were still like, we need to really understand what's going on, because we have deadlines. We have to meet with the state to, like, if we need to make some changes or tell them we don't exist anymore because the school doesn't want us to exist anymore.
I hear you. I hear you what you're saying, but we haven't got to that point yet. We're not even there yet. The board, tonight is the board's first, one of trying to have a meeting and understand as a board. So we haven't even got to that point yet.
It was an email that kind of alluded to, well, there's been a meeting and we're still working out details, and that meeting wasn't about PTSO, that was something separate.
Right.
So knowing that, hey, we still haven't had the meeting that we need to have.
Yeah, so it's coming. But yeah, that meeting request, it wasn't about PTSO. Right. It was merely about an outside situation and trying to come up with clarity on the outside situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And how we move forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And in that meeting, we did let your president know that you guys are okay and how to continue to
Right,
move
we
forward.
just wanted that in email form, cause
But,
again, that meeting was
I-
separate.
But I stated
So-
that, me personally, to your president, which your president should have came back and told her board.
But we
She
still need to
did,
put
but
it in
that was,
writing.
that was a meeting that was about something else. So that's why you immediately got an email saying, hey, we still need clarity, can you let us know?
Okay, all right, got you. Go ahead, Madam Secretary. You got it
Okay,
before us, y'all.
yeah, that's my whole point. I think that people are getting bogged down on the fact that we had counsel here. It is a regular thing for the board, if we think there's an issue or if we need clarification on what's going on. As Ms. Taylor said, we're not versed on PTO or PTSA or any of that. So therefore, whenever we're having our meetings, we request counsel here. That had nothing to do with trying to keep anybody else out. That was for us. So no one should take it that, oh, you brought your counsel in when you're talking about PTSO. It's not like that. We did that for clarification on our own part.
Yeah, it's only about the election piece, that's it. I completely understand, it's about the election piece, that's on the agenda, nothing else. And the fact, the comments that he made regarding the election let me know that there was a conversation had with him about whether or not it was done correctly or not. So that meant that you guys had questions for us that we should have been able to have a dialogue about.
But still, we had to find out from him about that. And as Mr. Hannah said, we were going to have a meeting with everyone. So it's not like we going back and forth constantly beating a dead horse about something. Nothing was done intentionally with regards to the attorney. That was for our benefit. Now, as everyone has said, okay, going forward, okay, we can take care of these missteps and everything that was taken, but for going forward, okay, we're all gonna say we're gonna have a clean slate, but it's not productive for us just to keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
I agree, and I understand that it's 7 o'clock, I don't wanna be here either, my kid is sick tonight. I didn't wanna be here, but again, when there isn't like good communication going on, and then things are just, something could have been sent to us saying, hey, FYI, the board is meeting tonight to talk about this, we are still going to have a meeting, may not even been here tonight. So this is what happens when there isn't good communication.
Hey, let me say this to you. I'm gonna try to be as gentle as I can. My purpose coming up in here is to find out why the one employee that we do have said something to this lady and I didn't understand what it was. That's why I'm here. I've been on this board for a couple of times. We never be bothered with PT, none of this. We don't have none of this. But like I was talking to my counter here earlier. Now I worked for CTA for over 22 years. Somebody could get up on a bus and say, hey, good morning, and I could say, go sit down. And then this person could call the job, 1-800-YOUR-CTA, and say, hey, you know what, the bus driver just told me to sit my ass down, right? So guess what they gonna do? When I get to work tomorrow, they gonna call me in the office, and they gonna say, did you say that? And I'm gonna say, no, I didn't say that. But you know what they gonna do? They gonna note it on my record, though. So now they got that on my record. So if I keep on doing this kind of stuff, they keeping up with me. So my thing is, it's not that we sitting here trying to defend nobody, because ain't nobody perfect. And she will get in trouble if she do something that this board don't agree with. So I'm just saying, to me, that it's a lot of things that I could have been doing today. But I'm right here in this room with y'all trying to figure out how we can move forward. That's all I want to do. My son long gone from this school, but I love the community. I live here. I've been out here since '95. These are all my friends, but I know how to be an employer too. So that's where I'm at with it. I don't want nobody to have no problem. Cause we should all be able to move around here together and make this thing great. We wasting time on something that's not wasting time because you want some answers for it. I get it. But hey, like they said, let's just move on. I thought y'all should have been invited to this meeting today too. But like they said, we didn't know. And I'm trying to find out what was it that went on to make y'all want to be up in here. That's what I wanted to find out. So I'm with you.
I want to be here to always defend myself.
Yes.
Because her and I had 5 other email exchanges after our conversation, and I just didn't want to delve back into this last school year. And she responded and said she did not respond. So that's why I keep saying, let's try to do what we can for the kids, because no matter what I tell you all, because of her bad behavior and her bullying tactics, she's never going to admit it. And I wouldn't even ask her to, because this is her board, she can get fired. But all I'm gonna say is, and like my husband asked her, if you didn't say it and my wife left it feeling like she wasn't an appreciated parent, all you have to do is apologize and we could start over, and she refused to do it. That's what matters to me. And that's what I
Wait a
want to talk
minute,
about.
wait, that's not right, that's not right.
She talked about my story,
Wait.
she said how I treated her, and I just wanna let you
Miss
all
Patterson,
know.
Miss Patterson, I was in that meeting. That's not what happened. Your husband said he wanted something in writing, and if we didn't provide something in writing, he was going to channel 257-3250
He also asked
on
her to say
Lindop.
it. He also
And he said
asked
he's
her.
going to the community, but he said he did not want an apology from her verbally. He wanted it in writing only. That's what your husband said. So not only did he threaten her character, he threatened this district. Because I took that very personal.
Mm-hmm.
We only have 400 students in this school building.
Mm-hmm.
So to make accusations or to say something and then try to attack her on something that happened 20 years ago or 10 years ago that had nothing to do with PTSO, that was wrong, and that's why I shut that meeting down.
And that was a character assessment, you're right. And maybe you didn't like the character assessment.
No, I didn't want to hear it
But
because
is it true?
it could be true in your ears, your diction, your thought, your history. But that has nothing to do with PTSO. And that has nothing to do with Lindop. That's something personal that you guys got going on.
And the email I sent you all wasn't personal either. It was all about what happened in our meeting. And I haven't heard anybody bring that to the attention of everybody. This woman sat and told me about how she personally feels about me, and I was trying to sweep it under
We
the
don't have
carpet.
no meeting. We don't have an
An
email.
I handed them out in the meeting.
That piece of
Oh, the paper.
I handed out
the
the
paper.
entire transcript of our meeting, which gave them a chance to read it and assess it. She said she didn't say she had a personal issue with me, but she did.
Okay,
And she
well,
told
like
me.
I appreciate your comment, but at this point, it has nothing to do with PTSO.
So
Ms.
she shouldn't have brought
Ms.
it up.
I'm just asking, can you stop?
Only because she brought it up. I can't, I
Patterson.
just don't want anybody to
Ms.
speak
Patterson,
on my
I'm
behalf.
just asking,
All
can you
right.
We're
stop?
gonna move forward.
Okay.
It's okay.
Mrs. O,
Can we let
Was in
that,
the meeting.
can we let that go?
this is a character assassination.
She
And on my job, and we need a lie detector test, because that's the only thing that's gonna bring it out. I'm not. I'm not. I've apologized for the communication part of what it is. And I absolutely understand Mrs. Holland when she said that. I didn't remember this summer when they came up, but they did. They collected a check in the summer. But for someone to say this, that is a character assassination. And for 9 years that I've been here, I've had 3 parent interactions. One was with an issue happening with the board that we had a closed session meeting about. One was about an employee that someone was saying that I was harboring a pedophile, saying that I was in cahoots with the police and that they would be at the board meeting. And the third one was this: all roads lead the same way. It is the same thing.
I never said
I've
that.
never.
I never said she was in cahoots with the police.
Miss
All right,
Patterson.
so we
I
got.
mean, it is.
I'm asking,
I wanna know what.
because we're getting nowhere.
No, I don't, Ms. Patterson, can I just
And
ask?
This
her
is
stop
why.
as well. Stop her as
No,
well.
but
She
what
This
I'm
is why.
saying,
well,
Ms.
let her
Patterson.
I only wanted
Ms.
us here. You
Patterson,
know what I'm saying?
Hold on one second.
Can we talk in our way?
No. I'll wait till the meeting is over. I won't say anything
So we
else.
can, do we have anything left on the table? We can adjourn the
Yes.
meeting.
Hit me right here.
Let me read.
It is.
All right?
All right. So we're going to executive session under policy number 2:220E2. I move that the board go into closed session under 5 Illinois School Code 120/2, C1, 4, 8, and 9, and 10 to discuss the appointment, employment compensation, discipline, or performance of a specific employee of the public body. Evidence of testimony presented in an open hearing or in a closed hearing where specifically authorized by law. Security procedures, school building safety and security, student disciplinary cases, and the placement of individual students in special education programs, and other matters relating to individual students at 6:51 p.m.
My second.
Can we get a roll call?
Okay, so here, Ms. Taylor made the motion.
Aaron second. Roll call, please.
Okay, Penny Williams Wolford,
Yay.
Tanya Taylor,
Yeah.
Woody Morris Jr., Brian Dawson,
Yay.
Aaron Hanna,
Yes.
Greg Buchanan,
Yeah.
Cheryl Griffin, yay.
All right. That's it.
Yeah.
You guys have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If those pages can just be sent to the PTSO site. And then if we.
Wait a minute, what pages?
What page are you looking for?
Oh, the presentation?
Yeah, because we only got the one page.
Okay,
So
absolutely.
those pages so that we can share with everyone. And if there
Here you
is.
go, Ms. Howard, for yourself.
Not that.
No, because
Not
that's the one that don't have the thing at the bottom.
No, not that. You
Is that
got
what
too much in there.
Yeah, if it could
She
just be
said
emailed
email.
to us and then we can email it to everyone else. And then if a decision is made, that just let us know immediately if it's
Okay.
gonna be PTA, so that we can make the changes that we need to make.
Ms. Holland, we're telling you, no decision will be made without you guys. Okay?
And so, can I,
Appreciate that.
the email that we have, who does that go to?
That goes to the executive board.
Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
all of you guys have access to
I'll
that?
have,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our board meeting was.
You got something?
All right.
Just wish something might be a roll of food.
Oh, please, can you please?
To do
All
what?
right, so we gonna keep going. Let's keep going. Huh? We're going back into open session. I mean, going back in closed session.
We only got one thing.